Mhm. So let's close our eyes and take a deep belly breath, breathing into the center of this beautiful existence that you call me, I. And exhaling that beauty into the circle. And another breath, grounding us and bringing us fully present. And exhaling our willingness and our laughter and our sweetness into the circle. Knowing that all of these pieces of ourselves can be shared in our circle at all times. It's just a conscious act of letting ourselves merge with the whole, identifying with the circle rather than identifying with ourselves, feeling the continuity of a circle, and letting that wash across us, and giving thanks for all of the sweetness that exists in each of the women and the wisdom to show up on the Saturday morning to share. Knowing that what we take away from this circle is so much more than what we arrived with each morning, each Saturday morning. And taking a moment, if you're not in the gallery view, to put your gallery view on and just look at one another and just see the faces of divine feminine that is sitting in this circle this morning. So yummy. Ooh, so good. Noticing that we are connecting with one another and in our smiles and in our willingness to be here, just so good. So closing our eyes and putting our hands together at our heart, we can have our opening chant. Together we'll chant. Om. 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 Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Angratam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bowing to our heart and to the hearts of the women in this circle and our circle beyond. So today, what shall we do today? Let me just see if there is anyone that we need to. God, I just want to talk to every single one of you. I shouldn't look at that list. I can't do that. It's just so fun to see you. So today we are going to talk a little bit about bringing the divine into our every moment, into our day through chanting of the divine. I'm trying to stay out of this sun. In Hinduism, the Vedas describe the four paths to realization, liberation, mukti, And they're described as karma yoga, the path of action, bhakti yoga, the path of devotion, jnana yoga, the path of knowledge, study, and raja yoga, the path of meditation. It is said, I've heard many teachers say that the fastest of these four paths to the divine is through bhakti, the path of the heart, the path of devotion, the path of surrender. However, it is not the easiest of the paths. It might just be the fastest, but it takes surrender, particularly for Western individuals. The most difficult path is that of surrender, because we have trained ourselves to be in control, and surrendering to anything requires a whole rewiring of the way that we work into the world. However, if our desire and our longing is powerful enough that we should connect with the divine, and we should be able to be in a space of communion with the divine all the time, then bhakti is a really favorable choice to make. So we're going to talk today a little bit about what one of the practices of bhakti might be in your sort of toolbox of practices. One of the ways that we can invoke the presence and our connection with the divine is through chanting the names of the divine. And we know that sound moves through us. When we just listen to sound, we know the vibration, and that sound has an impact on many of our senses, both our hearing. It's a physical, we feel the frequency and the vibration physically, but there is an added element or an added depth to that when we actually chant ourselves. So when we're saying a word out loud, a name out loud, it has a different impact than if we're saying it as an internal, or we're not saying it, we're just listening to it. So incorporating our own voice into speaking the names of the divine has a more powerful potential for us to use chanting as a tether to the divine that's both in us and outside of us, the entirety of the divine. We, of course, are a piece of that. So this is a way for us to connect not only more deeply to ourselves, to the source that we are, the source of creativity and the source of inspiration and the source of compassion and the source of wisdom that we already are, and that we want to be in communion with all the time. We want to be able to share those aspects into the world because we are in seva. Bhakti also is the path of seva, of being in gratitude and offering back to the world at all times. And all of us on this call are doing so many beautiful things that are in service of other, whether it's our family members or it's a greater community. And so being in bhakti, part of that is being in service, recognizing that we're in service. And to be in service, we need to be able to gather all of the tools that we have inside of ourselves. And the deeper our connection to the divine within and without allows us to connect and to offer those seva pieces into the world in a really meaningful way, in a way that's just, it's smooth. It isn't even a conscious, I'm offering something. It's just that you are the offering. Just your presence becomes the offering. In different traditions, we have different names for the divine. And I want to just chat a little bit about that. I don't know how many of you on this call have been exposed or are practitioners or participants in the Jewish tradition. But if you have been to a temple, a Jewish temple, you will know that chanting the names of the divine and the way that music is used in a cantor, the leading of a cantor into the congregation to have them call in the divine is so powerful, whether you understand the language or not. Just sitting in the congregation and feeling that movement through the temple while the cantor is leading the congregation in chanting and singing is, if you haven't had an opportunity to do that, go to a temple near you and you will have such a beautiful experience, because the language of Judaism is all about calling in the divine. How do we call in God? You'll hear Adonai and Elohim. There are many names for the divine in the Jewish tradition, but they are chanted in such a powerful way in their regular gathering and liturgy of their tradition. For Christians, Gregorian chants is one way to really be using the name of God and invoking the presence of God. Really beautiful chants. Gregorian chants are really moving. Some of the chants that are recorded in monasteries by the monks and the nuns chanting, really exquisite. For Buddhists, they don't worship. Buddha was very clear that he did not want people and his followers to view him as a god, that he was simply a man who was able to walk on the path and become enlightened because of the efforts and the work that he put in, and that is possible to all. So he didn't want to be viewed. He even didn't want any relics of his anything to be shown and saved, temples and statues. And of course, as soon as he took Mahasamadhi, that happened without it. There was nothing he could do. His followers wanted to remember him, but on his own, he asked for that not to happen. And so in Buddhism, they don't chant to God in that way, but they do chant about the Buddha essence and the Buddha compassion. That was the beauty of what Buddha taught and how he lived into the world. One of the Buddhist chants that is invoking that is the Om Mani Padme Om, which translates into hail to the jewel in the lotus. And it's the chant for divine compassion, another name for the divine. So when Buddhists are chanting that, they're pulling in that energy. For Hindus, the chanting is known as Nama Sankirtana, and it means singing the names of the divine. And you'll hear chanting such as Ram, Ram, or Hari Om, or Jai Ma, or even Om, as it's connecting to the eternal sound and the primordial sound of the universe. There's a beautiful chant, 1,000 names for the Divine Mother. It's Sri Lalita Sahasra Nama. It's really intense. It takes about 45 minutes. You can pull it up on YouTube. I'll actually give you a link to it and listen to it. Learning the 1,000 names for the Divine Mother in Sanskrit would be quite a challenge. However, just having that sound wash across you is really powerful. 1,000 names, 1,000 different ways to call in the Divine Mother in Sanskrit. It's something. Hare Krishna is another chant that you'll hear in calling in everything that exists. Krishna is the name for the supreme person, that who is the ultimate source of all energies. And you'll hear people in India chanting Hare Krishna. And Ram, who is an avatar of Vishnu, whose name is synonymous with God. Ram, Ram, Ram. You'll hear people doing that often. Matter of fact, I'd like to play just a little. I'm going to share just a small chant around that because it's so beautiful. Just a small piece of it, of a Ram. Ram Ram Jai Raja Ram, Ram Ram Jai Sita Ram, Ram Ram Jai Raja Ram, Ram Ram Jai Sita Ram, Ram Ram Jai Raja Ram, Ram Ram Jai Sita Ram, Ram Ram Jai Raja Ram, Ram Ram Jai Sita. So sweet. Listening to chants of the names of the divine can be very slow and melodic and very tender, but they can also be very joyful and explosive. It's intoxicating. Repetitive singing and chanting of a name of the divine, the name that resonates for you, can be intoxicating. You'll start slowly and it becomes a rhythm within you where you're transported someplace else. It's a fabulous way to work on the path of bhakti, to bring the divine into our experience on a regular basis. And as St. Paul said about unceasing prayer, if we are in unceasing recognition and in alignment with the divine, we have an opportunity to shift our internal landscape. It's not just happening in the sitting on the cushion chanting with your mala. It's happening as you walk through the day. So unceasing connectedness with the divine becomes a practice where anytime your mind goes somewhere else, you simply bring back that name that you use for chanting and connecting with the divine. So in your mind, there's a loop of the divine being present all the time. And it's a practice. It takes some time for us to be able to have that automatically kick in, where we're moving through our day and all of a sudden we realize in the back of our mind, we have a little chant going on. And that's the devotion and the giving over ourselves to the divine essence inside of ourselves. It isn't just sitting on the cushion. It's not just sitting and chanting 108 chants of something and then going away from it. It's bringing it into, it's imbibing it into your body in a way that it becomes part of the essence of you. It's really powerful. I have on, I'm going to post this on our chat. We have a Spotify playlist, which I've just shared the link for, which we created when I think it was created, I can't actually remember why we created it. It was for something we were doing. I think it was like the 21-day practice that we did. We created a playlist. But if you go to Spotify on this playlist, I've added some of the chants around chants for the divine on there, and I'll add the 1,000 names for the Divine Mother on there. But it's nice if you happen to use Spotify for your music, you might want to add this playlist. Chanting the names of the divine can be used in our day as a strength. So when something, we have all these little micro practices that we do when things start to get intense. If we're feeling out of balance or we're in a difficult situation or something's coming at us, we have our breathing, deep breathing, and the counting our breath, and they're taking a break. There are many ways for us to handle situations as they unfold. Chanting, even just in your mind, not out loud, when the situation is difficult for you, is a beautiful way to reconnect yourself in that moment with the divine. So a little just background about prayers, mantras, and chanting the names of the divine, not the same thing. So prayers are generally invoking the presence of the divine and then asking for something or in being in gratitude, but it's not the same as using just the name of the divine and saying it over and over. That's a different process. And mantras are about bringing in a specific quality. Support for overcoming obstacles, invoking blessings, protection, healing. Each mantra, based on the Sanskrit words that are included in the tones of those words, has a certain effect. And generally, it's to handle something that is challenging in our life, whether it's our health or, it can be whatever. But a mantra has a specific goal in mind. Chanting the name of the divine, the goal is to connect with the divine. That's the only goal. You're not asking for anything else. So they're different. A chanting the divine names is not the same as chanting a mantra. It can have a similar effect in some ways, but a mantra is aimed towards something else, something very specific. And the names of the divine is about this essence of us connecting to this essence. Ram Dass said, one really powerful sadhana or spiritual discipline can simply be chanting the names of God, because when we do so, we're chanting to approach God. We're chanting to be in relationship with God. We're asking for a connection in and through us with the divine. How do we keep that tether to the divine all the time? Because that's our source of inspiration. That's our source of creativity. That's our source of healing, comes through our divine lineage that we are a part of. And the more access and the more our ability to sit in that, the more we can utilize that which is already there for us. That which is already there for us. So this week, take your mala or any Don't even count the number of times, and find the name of the divine or the names of the divine that most resonate for you, and start a practice of every moment as you move through your day, invoking that name, bringing that name into your consciousness and into your both audible and inaudible reality, to make the chanting aliven that connection and that deepening and that knowingness of the divine that you both are, and that is all around us. Walking in nature and chanting the names of the divine, a name of the divine, exquisite, exquisite, because that's what is divine, the nature around us. So connecting in the ways, but that name is a bridge for us. And the more we walk across that bridge, the more familiar the territory becomes. And the more familiar the territory is, the more we can be in that place without even having to call it. It just becomes the way we move through our day. And I have blessings that we should feel that this week in really powerful ways, that the divine is walking with us, both in us and through us. Ram Ram.
Ram Ram.
Ram Ram. Go girls.
Nirmala, I just want to also explain something, so because people could think, what is this doing when we do these mantras? And you explained a lot from your point of view. But if we look at the physical component, so if you look at our brain as a hard drive, like a computer, and you know that they're in the computer, there are a lot of programs you're not aware of. They're running in the back. If you don't turn them off, they're consistently running. And those are our subconscious thoughts that often actually determine the way we live. So now you add a repetition of a mantra or the connection to the divine, and it goes through your head the whole time. So what it does actually, it deletes some of the programs that are in the back of your head. So it's like a house cleaning of your subconsciousness. And that's the beauty, because it overturns the existing programs in your mind. And that's why I think chanting or devotional bhakti is so beautiful. And what Nirmala also shared is, I do it a lot when I go hiking. I'm hiking with my mantra, and I do it out loud until people come, then I get a little, hesitant. The difference is if I use my tongue and with the mantra, I activate the acupressure points that I have in my upper palate. So that's why singing out loud is more effective in a short term, because every syllable, every word that you chant, and when you use your tongue and you hit your upper palate, these 84 acupressure points are differently connected to your glandular system. So by hitting the same spot again and again with the same mantra, you're activating your pituitary gland, pineal gland, and then those glands starting to secrete. So there's a physical component to vibrating mantras that's really important to know about, because that's why we also through mantra are creating changes in our lives, because you're physically changing when you use a mantra. So I thought that's something maybe interesting for you to inquire. So the 84 acupressure points in your upper palate play a big role when you decide to chant. I thought this morning, I thought we talked about, Nirmala and I, about, chanting to the divine. And then I looked into our politics yesterday morning. Thank God yesterday morning, not today. And what I saw is that our head of states right now are mainly men. And they are back to the old concept of war. And, I miss Andrea Merkel. I miss that woman in the scene there. And I thought, we as women are so needed right now. So I thought for us, it's also important to go into our power through calling on the divine, calling on our own primal power, calling on the Kundalini, calling on us to connect the feminine and the masculine energy within us. Because I think we are really called forth to make a difference now. Otherwise, I don't know what these guys are up to. So, and I want to use the Adi mantra, the Adi Shakti mantra, because for me, that's one of the most powerful, like, callings out into the world, but also callings into myself, that I connect with who I am. So there are a lot of words and I wrote them down, but I think we can go through it together. And there's a lot of movement. So Britt Marie, you just move your one arm, yeah? And that's just fine. And Brenda, be careful with your shoulder. So the first movement is you will have your thumbs inside, you wrap all your fingers around, and the sounds are Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo. Serap Shakti, Serap Shakti, Serap Shakti, Namo Namo. Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo. Kundalini, Mata Shakti, Kundalini, Mata Shakti, Kundalini, Mata Shakti, Namo Namo. So here it's about our opening, the Adi Shakti, to really get in touch with your primal power, Adi Shakti, and then you protect yourself. Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti. And then you go into Namo Namo, which means repeat. Serapa Shakti, we use the power that we activated, but to share love, compassion, patience, and understanding. Serapa Shakti, Serapa Shakti, Namo Namo. Pritam Bhagavati is the connection and the intertwining of the masculine and the feminine. Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo. Kundalini, Mata Shakti. Kundalini is our life force, and we bring this force into our mouth. Kundalini, Mata Shakti, Kundalini, Mata Shakti, Namo Namo. So if we look at these movements, yeah, so here we're decreasing, we're actually strengthening our lung meridian, yeah, because we put all fingers around. So we're opening our chest and our lungs, the heart center, and then we go into protection because we always need both. That's crucial. We cannot run through life just like this. That might be a little dangerous. Yeah, we have to know when to close down. That's the part you spoke before in the check-in. We have to also retreat. And then we have to see, how can I live my feminine and my masculine? Sometimes it's really important that we are more in the masculine. Sometimes we need to be in the feminine. But just the feminine or just the masculine is out of balance. So they need to come together. And then our Mata Shakti, Kundalini. So that's at the base of our spine. We want to pull this energy up into our heart center all the way up to the crown, because we want this Kundalini energy accessible so that we can live our potential as women and as humans in general. So it's a call. We're going into the chanting now. It's a call and response. Nirmala, I just need to make sure that you turned off your shared screen so that I can turn mine on.
Do I need to do something smart?
Yeah, you need to turn it off.
I don't have it on. I mean, I'm not sharing currently.
Okay, let me see. Yeah, let me see if I can. Yeah, I have it. It's okay. Good. So first, there's a whole round where you just listen to her and feel into her energy. And then I will let you know, then you will see at one point, when I move my arms, you move your arms with me. Yeah. The woman who is chanting, she always sends and we will respond to her call. It's really powerful. It's a good practice.
Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Adi Shakti,
Adi Shakti,
Adi Shakti,
Adi Shakti,
Adi Shakti,
Adi Shakti,
Namo Namo,
Namo Namo,
Sarva Shakti,
Sarva Shakti,
Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo,
Namo Namo,
Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Namo Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Kundalini Mata Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Adi Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Kundalini
keep your arms up. Exhale, open mouth. 2 more times. And gently let your arms drop to the side. Rest them onto your knees or your thighs. Palms facing upward. Shoulders are dropped. You might feel a tingling in your palms. That's all right. It's just energy. Feel the breath now, how it moves more freely through your third energy center, your solar plexus, and in your heart chakra. Breathe into your strength and into your grace. And let the breath of devotion become your guide throughout this weekend. And we're bringing our palms together and tuning out. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful.